Up on this episode of Tech News Today, Microsoft sells a lot of Surfaces, the new Uber for kids, and how your car can help you keep from running somebody over the next time they're in front of you in a crosswalk. All that and more coming up next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, October 24th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out where your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Lane. This is Tech News Today, which covers daily tech news with the journalists who report it. I'm very excited to be here. I'm filling in for Mike Elgin, who is on vacation this weekend. We'll be back on Monday, and of course, I'm joined by Jason Howell.
How's it going, Sarah?
Really well. See, I didn't make the same mistake I made yesterday, where I just expected you to speak up.
We got there, but then we talked about it.
Yeah.
We talked about how we got there.
Right. So, yeah. The wall is broken.
That's right.
But it's not just us. Actually, we're joined by Roberto Baldwin, reporter over at The Next Web, who has graciously, decided to join us. I don't know why you decided that this was a great idea, but we sure appreciate it.
There was a nice email sent and promises of candy. So if you're going to send me an email and promise me candy, I'll do pretty much anything.
Excellent. Yeah, it's candy in the form of Amazon earnings. In fact, Amazon, we should just jump.
That's the candy corn of earnings.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, it depends on if you like candy corn or not, which I do not. But that's very timely because Halloween is coming up. In fact, I just got my nails done. So Amazon, we should talk about their earnings report. Came in yesterday afternoon. Not great. And I think one of the standouts is that Amazon is writing down about $170 million worth of unsold Fire phones. It's pretty much a flop. A disappointing quarter for Amazon overall. The company, basically has $83 million worth of unsold inventory, and that 170 million charges what the company says primarily related to Fire phone inventory valuation and supplier commitment costs. Basically, the Fire phone was not a good seller. Roberto, does that surprise you in any way?
No, I reviewed the Fire phone, and I am surprised that at some point someone said there were 34,000 Fire phones or less than 35, and I'm surprised that many people bought the Fire phone. It is not a good phone. It's a really crowded market. You can't compete against iOS and Android with just a weird little gimmick, which was their dynamic perspective, and
And it entered the market at, $200, which was
subsidized.
Subsidized, yeah. But still, you can get something that's much more of a flagship device, like something like the Galaxy S5 from Samsung. Of course, now the Fire phone is 99 cents if you have a 2-year contract with AT&T, which sounds pretty good. People don't really want it, though. Amazon doesn't really report numbers specifically, but their Fire phone is said to have sold less than 35,000 units in 2 months. That is, if you compare it to something like 10 million iPhones in the first 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it was, those aren't good numbers.
No, it's incredibly disappointing, but it's not surprising. Their Fire OS on the tablet is fine, but a phone is a completely different beast, and they're so late to the game, and they're battling against so many different things when it comes to the mobile space. And I was surprised that they came out with a phone with how they did, and then $200.
I'll be really curious to see if they follow it up. I mean, obviously, mobile's they're trying to make mobile a part of their DNA, but has been such an impressive failure that it's like, do you come out with another one and maybe get rid of the 4, cameras on the front that look like bolts? And it's just such an ugly device.
Definitely an experiment. If you look back to the first Kindle, obviously Amazon has come a long way. It's not as if the company can't handle hardware. But it's been a weird year for Amazon. The latest earnings report was disappointing, at least to Wall Street. The stock is down, I think, overall about 20% over the year. it makes you wonder, okay, well, what direction is Amazon going in? Can they do a phone? Was it just marketed, inappropriately? I know that there are some plans to increase the presence of Amazon kiosks in malls for the holiday season. In fact, there is one at the local mall in San Francisco that I sometimes frequent, and I was like, Fire phone, no thank you. I didn't see anybody else stopping to check them out either. But yeah, I don't know. Roberto, any thoughts on what Amazon is going to look like a year from now?
I think their Kindle line beyond the Fire phone, which it still does pretty well for them, I believe. I mean, their readers are still the best readers, has the best ecosystem. They're really pushing their instant video. They have some good shows on there. They're Transparent, which is an excellent show, right up there with House of Cards. So they're hitting some good marks on a lot of other things. But that Fire phone was just so, God, it was just a bad phone. And trying to put your fingers in all these different pots is really, really expensive, and so it's really going. It's hitting them on the bottom line. But they're selling an ecosystem, they're selling a service, and to keep expanding that, they want to try different things.
Well, let's move on now to a completely different topic, and joining us to give us a little bit more information on what's actually happening in the world of Gamergate, which is the first time I've ever uttered those words on any sort of a live broadcast because I'm terrified, is Chelsea Stark, games reporter over at Mashable. Welcome to the show, Chelsea.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
All right, so you wrote an article, which actually is titled "Why Gamergate Can't Continue," and we certainly don't have the many hours that it would take to go over why Gamergate started in the first place. And depending on who you ask, it's probably a different answer. But we're now at a point that just the term Gamergate puts somebody on one side or the other. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what is happening right now is what some are calling, a small minority, what other people are deciding to call it consumer revolt. It's a lot of, a lot of different angles of this story. There are people that are upset about the causes of journalism ethics. There are a lot of other people that are saying, no, this isn't about journalism ethics. These are about people that are upset about, certain smaller developers using their, saying that they're using their clout to get curry favor online, which isn't really true. It's just kind of a very mired topic for a lot of people.
So in essence, Gamergate sprung up because there were some folks who said, listen, we've got some ethics problems in gaming journalism. People are writing stories and maybe, their journalistic ethics are questionable. Okay, well, that aside, and that goes for, I think, all journalism. You should always, hold people's feet to the fire if you believe that their journalism ethics aren't completely straight. But at this point, and I know that Felicia Day, who's obviously a very well-known gamer, she started the video series The Guild, which was well-liked. She's an actress, sci-fi actress. If you don't know who Felicia Day is, she's pretty great. She wrote an article that was, I think that you would say, it was a little bit later than I would have expected. In fact, I was kind of waiting for her to weigh in on all of this because she is such a face of female gaming, saying that she was actually really terrified for her personal safety because what's happening is particularly women who speak out about harassment online are getting more harassed. And this really has nothing to do with ethics and journalism. And I'm not exactly sure how the two topics have become intertwined at all.
I think that that's one of the problems here is that Gamergate is a really large anonymous movement. And half the time, half of the members don't know what the other half of the members are doing. They kind of gather in a lot of anonymous image boards and Reddit, places where, certainly some people can have a discussion, but other people can go out and do things like send death threats to women. Certainly they don't know, members don't know, but it's easy to say like your hashtag has become kind of a dangerous place because people are still associating it with these 3 different women having to leave their homes. One woman, Anita Sarkeesian, a female video game critic, canceling a speech because she said she felt threatened. It doesn't matter if Gamergate was, signed at the bottom of the letter or not. It's still kind of a violent, dangerous time for women in gaming.
Roberto, would you put any pressure? As obviously somebody who none of us can sit here and be like, it's okay for people to get harassed online. On a social network like Twitter, for example, where I know a lot of people do get threats because it is pretty hard to get accounts taken down on Twitter, and if they are taken down because IPs aren't blocked or anything like that, Twitter's not really going after people that way. It's hard to get another account It's hard to keep another account from springing up in that person's place and continue to harass people. I know a lot of people point to Twitter and say, well, they're not doing enough. Mm-hmm. But is it the job of that kind of a social network to step into something like this? There's potentially, some things that Twitter could do. I mean, they could have it so, a brand new account, something that's, less than 30 days, can't, send tweets to people, or you could set it up so you block tweets from people who, haven't had account longer than 30 days. But it really comes down to just this very, very toxic environment of people who are A, misogynists, and B, they feel like they're being picked on. I've talked to a couple, I've made fun of Gamergate plenty on Twitter, and of course, people have talked to me, but no one's threatened me because I'm a man. I'm 200 pounds, I'm 6'3", no one's going to threaten me very. But a lot of them were like, well, it's ethics in gaming. I'm like, well, point out these problems, show me where there's ethics, issues. And they're pointing to articles where people are talking about the misogyny in gaming, which there is. There's a lot of sexualization of women. And they're upset that people are saying, well, this sexualization is bad. It is, it's toxic for women who want to play. It's toxic for little girls. It's toxic for men as well, because it creates this idea that women are objects. And when people are writing these articles, they're getting upset because a lot of gamers are feeling, well, they're saying that we're all misogynists, we're all these horrible people. I'm like, well, hurt feelings doesn't equal bad ethics. I'm sorry. Right.
I think I can add to that. I mean, a lot of the upset people are pointing to reviews instead of, actual articles, and saying that these reviews aren't written objectively, which is kind of a fallacy in itself. Like, a review is an opinion. It's an opinion about a game. And if you feel like this game makes me uncomfortable and gives me the heebie-jeebies to play, then that's a fair opinion, And I think, as we've learned from movie reviewers and music critics and all that, you find the reviewers you like and you follow their opinions. If you don't like someone's review, you're free to state a different opinion. You're not going to immediately say that they're corrupt.
Chelsea, I think in my most pessimistic view, I say, anonymous people online, will never be able to control them. The best thing you can do is ignore them and they'll go away. Gamergate is not something that's been going on for years, but it seems to be almost gaining momentum, and maybe that's just because more and more people are finding out what's going on and throwing in their 2 cents. But at this point, it doesn't seem like something that's just going to blow over. What do you think all of us do at this point when this is indicative of a much larger issue? And yes, there's gender roles involved, and it's very complicated, and nobody should be harassed. But at this point, what are our options? I mean, what tools do we have as online citizens to get through this, to get past it?
I think that some of the social media, especially Twitter, doesn't necessarily lead to productive dialogue. I mean, obviously, people can't have good conversations on either side in a 140 character limit. I think people need to go find spaces where they're going to have better conversations. And I think everyone, honestly, it's terrible to people being harassed, but it's almost like we need to tone down the rhetoric on both sides and try to see each other as people. It's condemn harassment, absolutely, but there's clearly people in Gamergate who are very upset, and I can understand that. I mean, the media has often painted gamers in a terrible light for decades. I mean, think about issues like every time that there's a big shooting, some outlets will immediately look to video games and say, well, this is obviously causing violence in people. And, plenty of studies have debunked that. But I think gamers are really ready, and I don't want to use the gamer term so blanket statement, but I think some people are really ready to dig in their heels and say, that's not fair. You're mischaracterizing us. And it really is hard if you don't feel like your voice is being heard. But at the same time, don't resort to trying to pull advertising away from news outlets, because that's still hurting people that are trying to do journalism.
Exactly. And this is obviously a topic that we've only just scratched the surface of, and we will not be able to solve in the next 30 seconds. But Chelsea, I do really appreciate you joining us on the show and giving us a little bit more background on what's going on, and some great opinions on how we go forward. Chelsea Stark is a games reporter at Mashable. Thanks so much for joining us on TNT.
Thank you so much.
All right, Roberto, I think this is a perfect time to go into a story about an app, standalone app made by Facebook. They love doing standalone apps these days, called Rooms, on iOS 4 now, although the company says that an Android app is tentatively in the works for 2015. Doesn't sound like we should hold our breath. But the idea is, it sounds very throwbacky. It sounds like old chat rooms, really. You've got a room that you can create, and you don't need your real name to create it. You don't even need a Facebook account. You can put together a discussion space, choose your topic, choose your moderation settings, invite people. You know, it's modern in the sense that you can share text and photos and videos and comments and that sort of thing. So it's multimedia, but it sounds to me like the old forum days. Now, when I think back on the old forum days, I think anonymity. I always have problems with that word. Yeah, it's a tough one. That's just, you know, you're just asking for problems because people say terrible things when they're not held accountable for them. And especially, you know, we're talking about Gamergate and anonymity and how it sometimes helps somebody who wants to say something bad say something twice as bad. I don't know. Why does Facebook want to do this? Aren't they just opening a can of worms here?
I think it's more about these sort of like you said, these one-off apps. Let's try something new. And you have Josh Miller from Branch who created this, and I talked to him, and he's very passionate about this. And on the whole, I mean, if you create a room that's talking about, well, obviously, if you create a Gamergate room, you're just asking for problems. That's
right. Yes. Yeah.
But you know, if I wanted to create a room about surfing in San Francisco, that's somewhere where I can do that, and I can talk to people about surfing in San Francisco. Because when I do that on Facebook or on Twitter, you know, most people don't care. Most people, here I could, you know, sort of consolidate a group of people who are like-minded, who want to talk about surfing in San Francisco or driving or Vespas or whatever random things I like to do. So on that, you know, on that aspect, I think it's a fun little app. I don't know if it's going to get wide use. I think the world of the forum has been waning. I mean, Reddit's the only sort of forum that still sort of sticks around. But they don't seem to be too concerned about that. You know, what they told me was, you know, if we get 100 good founders of rooms, then we're doing a good job. So if you get 100 really great rooms in there, then you're doing a good job. So I don't know. It seems like it's just this fun little side project that Facebook wants to do, and you know they have the money to do it. And if you miss forums, then go for it. I think I set up 1 or 2 rooms, and I keep forgetting about them.
Yeah, they also have kind of an interesting invite system, QR code based, where you either take a photo or you take a screenshot of a room's code in order to get in, to gain entry. Which, I mean, I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of QR codes. I use them at the airport every so often so that I don't have to print out tickets. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's okay. So I don't need a password. I think it seems to me like Facebook is kind of throwing a bone to everybody who says, you know, Facebook shouldn't be about, you know, our real identities. Why can't I use a pseudonym? And there's too much data on Facebook that Facebook is scraping from my life. And it does seem like maybe a bit of an odd fit. But as you mentioned, it's from the Branch team, which Facebook acquired back in, I think, January. And yeah, they've got the money, they've got the engineering, they've got the servers. Why not try something and see if it sticks? Even with a small subset of Facebook users, that's still potentially a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, it's a fun little place to kind of hang out and talk about random stuff. That's real. That is it in a nutshell.
Good, because there's nowhere else on the internet that I can do that. I'm so glad that Facebook has created this app for me. No other place. Yeah. Talk about random stuff. Yeah, Speaking of random stuff, we've got some a little bit more information on Microsoft earnings coming up in the show, plus couple car manufacturers are going to help us not run over people in crosswalks. Both very good things. But let's take a quick break and thank Gazelle for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Today. You know, there was an iPad announcement just last week. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't even know anymore. Apple has too many announcements these days. Well, anyway, maybe you're thinking about getting a new iPad or one of those new iPhones. Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone or iPad or other smartphone, other gadget for cold, hard cash. Go to gazelle.com, that's Gazelle.com, and enter whatever item you've got laying around that you're not using and you can get money for. You can tell Gazelle the condition that it's in, and it's okay if it's a little banged up. They'll even buy broken iPhones or iPads. Just go to gazelle.com and get an offer for your gadget, which is locked in for 30 days. That's really nice. Once Gazelle says, okay, here's what we're going to give you. You've got 30 days to send your gadget in. You've got time to set up your new device, wipe some data, although Gazelle will wipe your data for free if you don't do it yourself. But you want to do it now because your gadgets may lose value the longer that you wait. If you've got a junk drawer full of stuff or a box in one of your closets and it's like old gadgets, you know, it's not sentimental. Just get rid of them. Get some money and put that toward the gadget that you actually want. When it's time to get paid, you get paid fast by check, via PayPal, or get an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card. And again, those offers are good for 30 days. Gazelle's paid nearly $170 million to over 100 million customers. Free shipping as well. An iPhone 5S, an iPad 4, a iPad mini Wi-Fi, the first gen. You don't want those anymore. Hey, listen, if you're using them still, that's fine and good. But if you're ready to upgrade, let's get some cash from Gazelle. What's your iPhone, iPad, or other gadget worth? Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. And thanks to Gazelle for sponsoring this episode of TNT. All right, I mentioned that we were going to talk about Microsoft's pretty decent earnings week. And to join us, talk a little bit more about that is Alex Wilhelm of TechCrunch. Hello, Alex.
Good morning.
And I know before the show you said you were very jet lagged. You just got back from London where TechCrunch had its latest Disrupt conference. You guys doing like a Disrupt once a month now? Or it seems like...
Oh, God. I mean, yeah, it's felt that way. We do 3 per year, one in New York, one in SF, and then one somewhere in Europe. And this year, London was just very close to SF. So I'm in the office, and there's like, I think, 3 people here today. Everyone's sick and just destroyed.
Wow.
So it's been pretty rough, actually.
Well, thank you for going the extra mile and joining us, even though I know you're ready for the weekend. Let's talk about Microsoft's earnings. They had a better than expected Q1. It's their Q1 2015, which is just their latest earnings. And it sounds like the Surface line, particularly the Surface Pro 3, did quite well. You know, I guess I should no longer joke about the fact that nobody's buying Surfaces.
Yeah, I think the last quarter tally was $409 million in Surface revenue. This quarter was $908. So it was more than 2x in one quarter. I think what happened was a lot of Surface Pro 3 pre-orders were done in the last quarter, but the revenue didn't count until this quarter. So there was a huge kind of bump up in sales. And it's great for Microsoft. A lot of people were saying, 2 quarters ago, the Surface was doomed, dead, and so forth. And this quarter, they put up a lot of points on the board. So I think it means the product has a lot of legs to keep going. And, if you work for Surface, you probably still have a job.
Phone revenue was $2.6 billion, which was up from the preceding quarter. A total of, I think, 9.3 million Lumia handsets were sold. Now, that's still a very small fraction of worldwide smartphone sales. Obviously, Android and iPhone are decimating what Microsoft has to offer. But it's still, the numbers of handsets sold are on the rise.
Yeah, I meant to double check this. I think 9.3 million is either an all-time high or a second all-time high, and presumably it'll be higher in the next quarter, so they could finally have a more than 10 million unit quarter. It's not huge. It's nothing compared to iPhone sales, as you mentioned earlier in the Amazon segment. But I think certainly they're showing growth, and given that they've stated they have a path to profitability on the phone side, they can keep at it. If they can make it break even, there's no point to not having a crack at phones. So again, not fantastic, not earth-shattering, but simply better. And, when both their hardware projects do this well in one quarter, it does lend a lot of, credibility to the idea that Microsoft may be able to make hardware work. So we'll have to see, but it certainly looks better now than it did, 3 months ago.
Speaking of hardware, the company has officially announced, we knew it was coming, that the Nokia brand would be dropped from their Lumia phones. They will now be Microsoft Lumia phones. Besides the fact that maybe there was a little brand confusion on the consumer side, does this really change much?
No. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, they're the same phones. They're going to look the same. They'll have the same problems, same advantages. I think the Nokia brand in a lot of people's eyes is very strong in Europe, but I feel like in the United States, Nokia is a brand that has lost, nearly all of its, headspace over the last 10 years. So I think it was an obvious move, an expected move, but not one that'll make a lot of changes. I mean, why support someone else's brand, right? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So changes not much, but it's a nice little, pull down on the Microsoft and Lumia brands.
Roberto, I used to rock the Nokia phones. Haven't for some time, but yeah, I think in general, sometimes depending on where you live, you might say Nokia. Oh, Nokia used to be a big brand, so maybe it makes sense for Microsoft to start anew.
Yeah, no, I think it's dropping the Nokia brand's a good idea, because the last thing anyone remembers about the Nokia brand was the game Snake. Where you.
Yeah, but that game was awesome.
It was awesome. They should bring that back. But other than that, I mean, Microsoft is really on the right. I mean, their Windows 10 preview done really well. Next year should be really great for Microsoft. With the Surface getting better, and the Windows Phone is a good phone. It's just been difficult for them to sort of capture the public's attention, and I think they're slowly kind of getting out there. My nephew asked for a Windows Phone. That's what he wanted. So
how old is he?
He is 11.
What grade is that?
I have there's a TWIT employee, Alex Gumpel, who has a Windows Phone. He's the only one I know who has one, but he's dedicated to it. He loves it, I think.
If you get Alex Gumpel drunk, he'll tell you all about his phone. Seriously, every single time.
Oh yeah. No, I don't even.
I can vouch for that.
Okay. I don't think he needs any alcohol at all. Just a pancake.
Yeah, he's staring at me with dagger eyes right now. By the way.
Alex Wilhelm, writer at TechCrunch, thanks so much for joining us, and get some sleep, man.
No, not yet. I have a lot more work to do, but tonight.
Okay. Well, eventually you will have sleep. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. All right, moving on to this next story. I kind of have to chuckle because it's become sort of a joke, at least if you work in technology, that everything is the Uber for blank. The Uber for candy, the Uber for toothpaste. There is a new service called Shuttle, like Shuttle, but with 2 Ds, which is a service for parents to arrange paid rides for their children, which has launched today. And joining us to talk a little bit more about the service is Liz Gaines of Recode, senior editor over at Recode. Hello, Liz.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I feel like I'm writing about an Uber for X startup every day. I think yesterday was 2 actually.
Right.
Uber for valet parking and Uber for kids.
Yeah, we've got Uber for parking. We've got Uber itself is they're doing some campaign on the East Coast to send people flu shots. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about right now. There really is an Uber for everything.
Yeah.
But this one specifically is a service where parents who need their children to get from, the soccer game to the piano lesson can get them there without the parents actually driving them, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as with a lot of these Uber for X businesses, it's kind of something that was a luxury service that now is being made perhaps a little bit more affordably. It's not going to be, bare budget kind of thing, or a bare bones budget kind of thing. But for $9 a month, you can join Shuttle if you live in the Bay Area, and you can schedule rides for them to shuttle your kids around town. And the people who drive the cars are professional child care providers, so basically nannies. And it works just like these other services. The nannies drive their own cars, except that it's explicitly licensed and insured for kids.
Okay. Well, now I know that this service was launched by Nick Allen, who used to work for Sidecar. So he's certainly familiar with the idea of, ride-sharing car services. He's not actually a parent himself. I don't know that matters. He's obviously at least well-versed in the frustrations that parents might have with kids that are busy and needing to be in several places at a time. But I have to think, especially with some of the bad press that Uber, not just Uber, but particularly Uber has gotten lately with drivers who go off the rails and give the entire company a bad name. This has got to be something that people would really have to be very carefully vetted before they're driving other people's children around.
Yeah, that's completely crucial. And so that actually, the reason that this company might have a chance as an independent player in this space where, we talk about Uber and Lyft as the competition, but in reality, Uber is just massively bigger than everyone else, is that I think that this notion of trust is so crucial here. And Uber's brand is not about the people you want to send your kids on a ride with necessarily for a lot of people. So Shuttle may, I don't know how large this business is going to be, but I think it's an interesting place to split off and try to start something new.
Roberto, what do you think? $9 per month for a busy family and kids that need to be in places, and a mom or dad that doesn't have 8 arms like an octopus needs help.
The current helicopter parents who won't let their kids play outside, I can't see them letting them getting a ride with a stranger, no matter how well vetted that person is. Also, go pick up your kid. just go pick up your kid. I mean, or give them bus fare, or I don't. I mean, for some, I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to use this, and I'm sure they're going to love it, and the kids are going to love the fact that they're being chauffeured around. Or there's going to be a lot of therapy bills in the future where the kid is now calling their shuttle driver mom.
Liz, this is only launched right now in the Bay Area, so that's San Francisco and some surrounding cities. Is it the kind of thing where it really only works in certain regional areas? Uber started in San Francisco as well, and it works in many cities, and in some cases better than it works in San Francisco, at least for me.
Yeah.
What about Shuttle? It's
Yeah, I mean, I think any Uber for X business, if that is what we're going to call them, is all about density, and so you can balance supply and demand. But people have kids everywhere. And actually, the one mom that I talked to who was a Shuttle customer was out in Pleasanton, and she was telling me she uses the service 4 times a day. Of course, then I asked, when I started asking about the costs, she was using it during their free beta period. So I would use things 4 times a day for free. But she said she would continue to use it now that they're going to be charging.
Liz Gaines is senior editor over at Recode. Thanks so much for joining us, Liz, and happy Friday and have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks.
All right, Roberto, let's talk about cars. You a car nut?
I am a car nut.
You are? Oh, see, I asked
cars.
you that, not knowing what you would how you would answer, because we've never talked about this so far.
Look at that, sharing the same brain.
Yeah. So both Honda and Ford have launched systems to help us not run over people. Okay, so Honda has launched a driver assistive system that they call Sensing. The idea is that it can sense vehicles or pedestrians that are blocking the car's path. There's radar in the grille, and then there's a camera on the windshield that will give both audio and visual warnings to the driver. And if you get close enough to something that the car says, this is going to be a problem, the car will brake if you haven't already. Now, Ford has something similar. They call it their Advanced Driver Assistance System, or ADAS, which is included in new Ford and Lincoln vehicles, some of them anyway, starting with a model called Mondio, which is in Europe, not in the U.S. later this year. I also learned that Honda in the U.S., their luxury line is Acura, known elsewhere as Legend. Didn't know that. But basically, this is the same technology, and Ford and Honda are obviously rolling this out toward by the end of the year, which is great. As 2015 models come out. I wonder how much this makes more sense than the self-driving cars. I think some of us have a really hard time with, besides just the legality issues and being able to get that pushed through, the government side of things. It's so different than how everybody understands commuting and traffic patterns, and a lot of that is just sort of like, ooh, it's the Jetsons' future. Will we ever see it? I don't know. This seems like incremental steps towards smarter cars that are still manned by humans makes more sense.
It's always disappointing to see how many people are hit by cars in San Francisco. We have a horrible record on pedestrian hits. And so anything that's going to keep people who are driving and also doing this, this is the average driver now, that's going to keep people from running into each other, especially into pedestrians, is good in my book. And I'm like one of those hardcore car purists who thinks, I want a car without ABS. I want a car with, I don't want any computers. I don't want the differential being adjusted by a computer. But for this, and most people aren't like, 99% of drivers are not like me. These are people who, it's a utility and something that's going to make it safer, I'm all for it. I mean, this is, and you know, the sort of evolution to a driverless car. I mean, these are, you know, we're doing baby steps because we still have a long way to go. Even Google's like, we have a long way to go before this becomes a reality where you just get in a car and it takes you somewhere and it's not manned by an Uber driver.
You know, it's so easy to say, oh, if you're texting and driving, you're the bad guy. I mean, no one should do that. That is wrong. But there are also times, because I do a fair amount of commuting, and when I have to get through San Francisco before I get on the freeway, that's the worst part because people brake in front of you. And, you know, it does happen that sometimes I might be like, oh, look, a new restaurant. Yikes. Ooh, that guy stopped in front of me really quickly. So even if it's just sort of like, I wasn't doing anything wrong necessarily, that could save not only the front of my car, but you know, the guy's neck in front of me that I don't want to rear end. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it doesn't have to be texting. It can be, you know, eating and driving. You could be changing, you know, the music.
Right.
There's so many things going on in a car. I mean, Tesla put an iPad in your car. And it's just this big, bright, shiny digital display.
That's our 12.9 iPad.
Yeah,
that's where it is.
So beautiful. Look how beautiful that is. And you can look away for a second. I ride a Vespa in the city, and the other day I looked away for a split second, and I had to like slam on the brakes. And I wasn't texting because you can't do that on a Vespa, but you know, I had to slam on the brakes so I wouldn't hit the Mercedes in front of me. Yep.
Well, good. Honda and Ford, kudos to you. You are making our roads safer. Every other car manufacturer, please follow in line. Thank you. We have a couple acquisitions to pass along that might affect you if you like Yelp and or eating. Yelp has bought a company called Restaurant Critic. That's Critic with a K, K-R-I-T-I-K, which is a review service based in Germany. I hadn't heard of it before. Although it claims to have 330,000 reviews of more than 94,000 restaurants across Germany. So, all right, good. Yelp also announced a partnership with Hipmunk earlier this week that would allow people to place hotel and travel bookings from inside Yelp on Hipmunk. Now, I haven't seen the integration yet, Roberto, but I do like Yelp. I wouldn't call myself an enthusiastic Yelper, but I certainly use the reviews there. Yeah, I take them to heart sometimes, and I really like Hipmunk, and I think it's a pretty good partnership.
Yeah, you know, I don't use Yelp reviews so much as I use Yelp as a map to find out what's around in an area. But you know, having the ability to get a room with Yelp, because I'll use Yelp. What's, you know, hotels that are, you know, nearby. If I can, I can book this hotel right now. That's great. And why wouldn't I want that?
Exactly. Yeah. It adds one more layer of convenience.
Yeah.
In the acquisition news, Deezer, which is a French music streaming service, has bought podcast and talk radio programming app Stitcher, which is actually something that we talk about on Tech News Today as a way to subscribe to this show. Stitcher has a catalog of 35,000 or so radio shows and podcasts, NPR, BBC, Wall Street Journal, of course, Twitch shows, all part of Stitcher. Deezer says that Stitcher's standalone iOS and Android apps and website will continue, at least for now. They always say that. But they'll also be integrated into Deezer's existing platform as a free service called Talk. I don't use Deezer, Roberto. I know it's a French company, but I certainly know how it works. And it seems to me like, I don't know if Deezer has enough brand recognition as just a place for music that it would confuse any of its existing users. But I think in general, the more music plus talk that you can have on any service, the better, because then people don't have reasons to go anywhere else.
Yeah. This really puts, you know, when you think music, you think Spotify, and then maybe Rdio and Rhapsody, and then Google Music, and down the line to Beats. If Deezer wants to differentiate itself and hopefully grow its customer base, it really needs to have something new. And having those podcasts, which are really talk radio now, especially for commuters, you know, that's what you do when you commute. You're listening to podcasts or maybe some music, and to have one app that takes care of all that, that's a smart move for them.
We love having your feedback. In fact, if you listen or watch TNT, we want to know how. Please let us know. Record a video or take a picture of your setup, and do it wisely. Do not do it while you're driving. No driving selfies, please. Post it on our Google Plus page or Twitter or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we'll find it. I guess you don't even have to go to our Google Plus page. You just use the hashtag. That's how hashtags work. HowIWatchTNT. You can see them all for yourself, too, if you want to see how other people are. Hey, I know that girl. That's
Is that you?
That's my friend Andrew Brezen. Yeah, he was watching Tech News Today yesterday, I guess it was. Speaking of, that is our show. That is the tech news of the day, or the stuff that we thought was the coolest anyway. Thanks so much, Roberto Baldwin, reporter at The Next Web and frequent guest of mine over on Tech News Tonight, which is our afternoon show. It was great having you.
Yeah, I had to get up early, but woo!
Woo! And I know it's Friday, which is a day that you record the Gingercast. Will you be recording a Gingercast today?
We do. Well, Fridays are the day that we do a Ginger interview with a non-Ginger.
Oh,
so
a Ginger View.
A Ginger View. So if you're free later today, tit for tat. There goes the ethics in journalism. We've messed it all up.
Wash my hair or something. I think I'm very busy.
No, you put a wig on. I
think I have to go to the DMV.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I want to be part of the Gingercast. We've talked about this before. I really do. So, let's circle back next Friday. Excellent. Roberto Baldwin, reporter at The Next Web, an all-around good guy. Follow him on the Twitters, read his stuff. He is awesome. You can subscribe to this show, which is also awesome, Tech News Today, at twit.tv/TNT. You can also follow us on Twitter. Tech News Today TV is the account. Subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. You have a lot of options. Are you getting that? You can comment on Twitter or Google Plus using the hashtag TechNewsToday. You can send us email, tnt@twit.tv. Oh, you can leave us a voicemail as well, 260-TNT-SHOW. And be sure to catch Tech News Tonight, our evening news program, hosted by yours truly, airing live weekdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm Sarah Lane, and have a great weekend, everyone. Mike Elgin will be back next week.